Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Robert Adams, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Navy is Warrant Officer Cherie Thayers. We warmly welcome the family of able seaman Geoffrey Clive Reeve, whose story will be told shortly. This evening we're pleased to welcome the Defence Widows Group to the Last Post ceremony. The group is a subgroup of the ACT chapter of the Defence Force Welfare Association. It was established in 1981 and its focus is on providing mutual support and friendship through an established network for approximately 250 defence widows residing in the ACT. It is an inclusive group, the only criterion of membership being that a partner donned a military uniform in the service of their country. This evening we also warmly welcome Mr. Dennis Lyons, representing the Naval Association of Australia. As always, we welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. The live stream of this ceremony is made possible by the Returned and Services League of Australia and the RSL and Services Clubs Association. We welcome members who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by family and visitors to the memorial. Australia's Federation Guard is the tri-service ceremonial unit of the Australian Defence Force. They provide a ceremonial presence at civil and military events and during visits to Australia by foreign dignitaries. The Guard will now dismount the catafalque party from the tomb of the unknown Australian soldier. those who are able, I now invite you to please stand and join in singing the national anthem.
Cannibal Party, attention! Cannibal Party, present arms!
Australians, oh, let us rejoice, for we are one and free. With golden soil and wealth for toil, our home is got by sea. Our land abounds in nature's gifts of beauty, rich and rare. In history's page, let every stage advance Australia fair. In joyful strains, then let us sing, advance Australia fair.
Cannibal Party, shoulders up! Cannibal Party, order up!
For those requiring a seat, you may now please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight we'll read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 103,000 men and women who have given their lives for us during war and on operations over more than a century. But first we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today we remember and pay tribute to able seaman Geoffrey Clive Reeve. Geoffrey Reeve was born in Gympie, Queensland on the 30th of August 1925, the son of Sarah and Clive Reeve. His mother was a nurse, while his father was a farmer who had served with the 3rd Australian Tunnelling Company during the First World War. Young Geoffrey grew up on the family farm alongside his 3 sisters and 2 brothers. When he was 3 years old, the family sold up and moved to Brisbane. Geoffrey's father died when Geoffrey was 11 years old. Not long afterwards, his younger brother succumbed to deadly meningococcal disease. Left with a family to raise by herself, Geoffrey's mother and the family were greatly assisted by legacy. Geoffrey was a member of the Australian Sea Cadet Corps, a youth group involving maritime training that hoped to foster discipline and interest in the Navy. Geoffrey's interest in the Navy was certainly fostered, and he went on to join the Australian Naval Reserve. At the outbreak of the Second World War, the Australian Naval Reserve Forces consisted of just over 4,000 men. Geoffrey Reeve was mobilised for service, reporting for duty on the 2nd of October 1942. He was first posted to HMAS Cerberus, the Navy's initial training base on Western Port Bay, southeast of Melbourne. In early September 1943, able seaman Reeve was posted to HMAS Australia, the 10,000-tonne County-class heavy cruiser. Initially assigned to Australian waters, Australia had gone on to be assigned to Operation Menace, the Allied effort to install the Free French from the Vichy-controlled Dakar and escort transports and convoys before becoming the flagship of the Anzac Squadron. By that time, able seaman Reeve joined the ship's complement. The Anzac Squadron was reclassified to Task Force 44, and Australia was involved in bombarding Japanese-held islands in the southwest Pacific in anticipation of Allied assaults. In October 1944, Australia took part in the Allied invasion of Leyte Gulf, part of plans to recapture the Philippines from Japanese forces, and the largest single RAN operation ever undertaken, with the Allied fleet consisting of 550 ships. On the morning of the 21st of October, a Japanese Val dive bomber appeared between HMAS Shropshire and Australia. Australia had just weighed anchor, making ready to provide fire support for the American forces ashore. Having taken fire, the aircraft turned away before returning under heavy fire, crashing into Australia's foremast, where its petrol tanks exploded. In all, 30 officers and men on Australia were killed or died of wounds. 64 more were wounded, many were badly hurt. As Allied forces smashed the Japanese fleet, which lost 3 battleships, all 4 carriers, 6 cruisers, and more than a dozen destroyers, Australia sailed for Manus Island, escorted by HMAS Warramunga, and from there continued to the New Hebrides for repairs. By the 5th of January 1945, Australia was back in action in the Lingayen Gulf, covering the Allied invasion of Luzon Island. Over the following days, Australia would be hit by repeated suicide attacks. On that day, the enemy aircraft backflipped, landing between Australia's twin guns, killing 25 and wounding a further 30. Most of these were gun crew, as well as upper deck ammunition parties. The dead were buried at sea the following day. Among the dead was able seaman Geoffrey Reeve. He was 19 years old. With no grave but the sea, today he is commemorated at the Plymouth Naval Memorial. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my left among nearly 40,000 Australians who died while serving in the Second World War. His photograph is displayed today by the Pool of Reflection. This is but one of many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember able seaman Geoffrey Clive Reeve, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Everybody, shoulder
For those who are able, I now invite you to please stand for the reading of the ode and the sounding of the last post.
They have no grave but the cruel sea, no flowers lay at their head. A rusting hulk is their tombstone, a vast on the ocean bed. They shall grow not old as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Cannibal Party, present arms. Cannibal Party, shoulder arms.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget.
Cannibal Party, in words, 10. Cannibal Party, quick march.
We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Poziere or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of the Director, staff and volunteers, we thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today and for your continued support during the Memorial's development project. We wish you all a very pleasant evening.